Minneapolis, and John Canzano here with you on this great Friday with the state of Oregon having a big presence in this bracket. Nick Daschel, the beat reporter for the Oregonian who covers Oregon State, and by the way, does a fantastic job. I talked to somebody yesterday, Nick, who said Nick Daschel is doing the best work of his career. Isn't it funny how that works when the teams win and everybody's happy?
I'm a little concerned when somebody says this is the best work of my career. That means I've been following it the whole time. That's hey, yeah. I've been here since last week. You just came in yesterday. I'm just curious. Have you been run over by a scooter yet?
No scooters yet, but it's interesting. I saw the hotel that has the entire bracket on the side of the hotel. It's 4,800 square feet, this bracket, and it's really cool to look up there, Nick. I don't know about you, and see Oregon State still alive in this tournament, playing Loyola Chicago. Sister Jean, the nun, has had her fun. I think it's time for a new Cinderella. But let's talk about that. Specifically, what is Oregon State up against in this tournament and in this matchup tomorrow with Loyola Chicago?
Well, I mean, at this point, other than Gonzaga or Baylor, I think Oregon State can beat any other team in this tournament. Obviously, they can lose to any other team in this tournament, but they've proven Oklahoma State is no joke. They've got a legitimate player, and that was a big win for them. Loyola's on a roll. They beat a number one seed. They've only got 4 losses. They're one of the country's best defensive teams. But Oregon State's already seen one of those teams in Tennessee that was one of the country's best defensive teams, and they handle them pretty well. I think the thing that's given people some trouble with Oregon State is in this tournament, it tends to be a star on a lot of teams. Oregon State doesn't really have that quote-unquote star, but they have a lot of guys that can do something. You can't really focus on Ethan Thompson or Jared Lucas because then they got Maurice Kalu coming off the bench and playing like Kevin Durant and hitting threes from, because he's 6'10" and can do a number of things. You got, Silva down low. They got other guys that can do things. They just have so many guys. It's hard for these defenses to really lock in on Oregon State right now.
And I think that's part of their charm. And, as a columnist covering this team, it's like you want to go to that star player who's carrying the team, putting the team on their back. But, at different points of this tournament, you've seen Roman Silva carry this team. And, of course, you have Jared Lucas and, Thompson is playing terrific. It's just really interesting to me to see how this team has come together. You've been there from the beginning. How much more cohesive do they appear to you right now than maybe in December when everybody was talking about Wayne Tinkle maybe getting fired?
Oh, they've come a million miles. I remember when all the heat was coming down, they lost to Portland, Wyoming. I remember at one point, Wayne texted me and says, we're going to get this right. We're going to get this right. And I was going, okay,
yeah.
Okay. Show me then.
You've heard that.
But he was, he kind of knew what he was talking about. He knew it was going to take time to get everybody on this. Even though they got 2 seniors, they have a lot of guys that are only in their first year and, some of them in their second year. And that's college basketball anyway today. But still, he figured out how to put this team together. He figured out how to make, a guy like Maurice Kalu valuable off the bench. He got Gianni Hunt to settle down a little bit and be valuable off the bench. He got Warith Alatish in a spot where he can really do some damage down low with his athleticism. And they rebound and their defense has just been their defense in this tournament has been tremendous. They've held both these teams they played so far at about 30% shooting. You don't lose many games when you hold the other team to 30% shooting.
It's interesting that, I talked to Wayne Tinkle maybe a week ago. And one of the things that I think nobody really talks about, because we're in a pandemic and because this season started with, we came out of college football where we saw those cancellations and nobody quite knew what was happening and how crazy would college basketball season be. The players were not allowed to really hang out outside of basketball or really outside of the little bubble they created. So this team maybe didn't have a chance to kind of gel off the court, didn't have sort of those road trip experiences. They go to the hotel, go to the game, come back to the hotel, go to the airport. How did that play a factor in this team maybe getting together in February and in early March here?
Well, they did play a lot of road games toward the end of the season. And even though they're, bubbled a little bit on the road, they still see each other quite a bit. And I think that did have something to do with it, that they did see each other more often than not. That probably helped. And I think it's helped that, once you're together in this tournament, I mean, they've been on the road since March 9th.
Yeah.
I mean, that's when they left for the Pac-12 tournament. At this point, if you're not together, you're not going to get together in the tournament, because you don't really see a lot of each other than practice, because they have their own room. They're not, they don't tutor a room here. It's single rooms. They eat in their room. I mean, it's hard. So if you're not together by now, you're not going to get together in this tournament for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. I talked to Scott Barnes, the athletic director, this morning, and he said he had to leave the bubble to go to a meeting. There was a meeting he had to have outside of basketball. And once you leave the bubble, you can't get back in. So he's now staying at a different hotel. So that's how, restrictive it is. This team comes from a conference that, Nick, has been very good in this tournament, still has multiple teams alive in this tournament. Did the Pac-12, did we all underestimate the Pac-12, or what happened here that the Pac-12 is shining in this tournament?
Well, I think, Wilner wrote a little bit about this the other day, about how, last year we didn't have the tournament, and they were going to get 6 teams in last year. And that's not to say they couldn't have got a 7th, say an Oregon State or somebody, came out of nowhere and won it like they did at the tournament. I mean, they kind of set themselves up last year, and then they didn't really have much of a non-conference this year. And I've been saying all along, I think the NCAA should have totally discounted December, because teams were trying to figure out, they were just trying to figure each other out. So, the best teams were playing well for about mid-January on. And I think, the Pac-12 didn't really have a chance to show that. And people just sort of, brushed them off to the side and said, this is the old Pac-12. Well, it's not the old Pac-12. I mean, this is a pretty good conference.
One of the things the conference doesn't do well is it doesn't tell its own story very well. And I think we've seen it in football, and I think the perception nationally really is affected by the idea that this conference doesn't have a clue. Like, I'm not talking about the individual members. The actual Pac-12 doesn't have a clue on how to tell its own story. And I think that has to change. So what I noticed in this tournament was you have Andy Enfield and Dana Altman and Wayne Tinkle banging the drum more so than usual for the conference. I almost feel like the coaches got together and said, hey, Pac-12 is not helping us out here. We need to tell our story, and we need to talk about what a great conference it is, so that we all can recruit better and that we all can improve the brand. Because you're right, they didn't play in the tournament last year. College football has been a disaster. So the perception is that the Pac-12 in revenue-generating sports is not very good. And the only way to change that is for these teams to play well, and they have done it. Is Oregon State playing with house money now, Nick, though? I mean, let's say, getting to the Elite Eight, what does it mean for the program? Getting to a Final Four, what would that mean to Wayne Tinkle?
Well, I mean, at this point, sure, they're playing with house money, although that's not a storyline you want to throw at them right now. I mean, they're not going to buy that at all. But at this point, today, tomorrow's game, sure, it's house money. But if they get to the Elite Eight, that's a chance to get somewhere they've never been before. Well, they've been in the Final Four once, but it was way, way back when you didn't need to, go on such a long road to get there. That's a place they really haven't been. And so at that point, if they get the Elite Eight, then sure, I don't think that is house money. I think that's where the pressure really ramps up if they can get to that stage. And they could. They like I said, anybody in the Midwest, they could beat. They could beat Houston. They could beat Syracuse. They could beat Loyola. They could lose to all 3 of those teams too. But they're in it with a chance. So that's all you can ask for if you're Oregon State.
Their basketball in the first 2 rounds of this tournament has just been so much fun to watch. And I think a lot of Oregon State fans and even non-Oregon State fans are really enjoying this team, because we all love good stories, and we need good stories. We need hopeful stories. Unfortunately, they run into another one in this round with Loyola Chicago. What do you know about that team, Daschel?
I haven't spent a lot of time looking at them just because I just feel like, the Oregonian, we ought to focus on, this is where you can get Oregon State information. You can get Loyola information everywhere else. I've looked at them a little bit defensively. They're something else. I mean, they do a lot of different things defensively that's, Oregon State's going to have to figure out. But I mean, there's nobody on that team that you just, that blows you away. I mean, they don't have a Cade Cunningham like Oklahoma State did, but they're a good team. They're kind of a team like Oregon State. They've got a lot of parts, and none of them are great, but they're really good.
Yeah, and I just love, though, that Oregon State is in this position. Wayne Tinkle moving forward, you reported earlier that because they made the NCAA tournament, he got an additional year on his contract. So here it is. Here's this juxtaposition in December. I'm asking Scott Barnes, are you concerned? He says, I want to see improvement. All the markers of a coach getting fired were there in December. Now we're talking about an additional year for Wayne Tinkle. I've heard his name come up in other places. How happy is Wayne Tinkle at Oregon State? Does Oregon State have to worry if he gets to an Elite Eight or a Final Four that he's looking somewhere else?
Well, he loves Oregon State, but at some point, I think he wants to see that love back. And if you got now he's got 3 years, but I think at this point, why run the risk? If you think he's your guy, give him 5, lock him up. Don't let him dangle out there in the off season, or because there's 4 big jobs open right now. They're going to get replaced. He's probably not in line for one of those, but somebody coming from one of those schools, that job might open, and who's to say he wouldn't be in the running for that one? And so, I don't think he's looking for to break the bank. I just think he wants some years, and if you're Scott Barnes, why run that risk if you think that Wayne is your guy? Why let him go? They could let him go next year. I could see the the reasoning for that. But why run the risk if you think he's your guy? Because you've gone 30 years, you've run through all these coaches, none of them have been your guy. This is the guy that's finally got you some winning seasons, got you the NCAA tournament twice. Why not lock him up?
Indianapolis is hosted the Final Four. It's I've covered the Final Four in this city and covered NCAA tournament regionals here. The feel, and I've only been here 24 hours, is it doesn't feel like a major event is going on. It feels like a Star Trek episode. Like I'm looking around and I see all the signage, but I don't see the normal fans in the lobby of the hotel. There's no line at Starbucks. I just saw a police escort. I looked out the window of the hotel room. One of the teams was going to practice. There was a police escort with buses. There's no traffic. Like they didn't need an escort, Nick. Does it feel to you that this is happening in this city yet, or does that only happen when we get in the venue?
Well, no. They can only allow up to 25% capacity in any of these places. And, like I was at Bankers Life for the first game, there was maybe a couple thousand there. I mean, they just are not allowing a lot of people. Same thing with Hinkle Fieldhouse the other day. There was 1,200 people in there. They're just not allowing a lot of people in there. And yeah, the police escorts are kind of funny. I stood on the sidewalk. They're coming by every 5 minutes. It was 64 teams in town. It was, I know one of the OSU coaches was telling me he was standing in his hotel room looking down, and he said every 5 minutes you could see a police escort come because they were bringing another team in. And but plus there's a lot of construction going on around here too. That's the other thing that's kind of getting in the way. Yeah, there's not the people here that you would expect. Now maybe next weekend it's different. Monday is when they start the regional final is at Lucas Oil. More seats, I assume more tickets they can get out. I haven't asked to see what Oregon State, if they're able to, if they get more tickets for that game. I know they only get 350 for this one. Maybe they get more if they make it to the Elite Eight, and certainly the Final Four. I would think if they got that far, they would get more.
I wrote a column this morning about a scene that happened in Jay John's office. Jay John, 2 coaches removed from Wayne Tinkle, called me to his office one morning, and I went down there, and he got down on his hands and knees, and he was showing me the carpet. There was a hole in the carpet, and he was saying, look at what look at what I have to deal with here. at Oregon State? How do they expect me to win? Bob DeCarolis builds the basketball practice facility. They go 2 stories with it, men and women, investment there. Scott Barnes this morning said, look, we've invested in coaching salaries. We're flying on chartered flights, not commercial flights. We are invested in, we built the weight room. Yeah, it's for football mainly. Everyone sees it as a football thing, but basketball's in there, men's and women's programs. How have those investments over the years, Daschel, factored into the success that Oregon State's seeing now, in your opinion?
I mean, it's everything. I mean, it's hard to believe the basketball team can ask for anything more other than, let's say, an updated Gill Coliseum, which that's another discussion that would cost, 9 figures. And yeah. I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but I don't honestly think to a player the arena is that high up. I think it's the day-to-day. I'm living in the locker room. I'm living in the practice facility. I'm living in the weight room. I mean, all those things are top notch right now for Oregon State. I don't know that you could ask for more.
Yeah, and they talked this morning about the investment in the locker room. I thought that was interesting. Think about the things they're investing in. It's coaches, sure, in the practice facility, but it directly influences recruiting. It's the chartered flights. It's the locker room. I was in Chicago. I was in O'Hare Airport last night, and I saw Iowa's basketball team flying back to Iowa. They were flying commercial. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, the commercial flight piece, that's probably one that's the next, I guess that would be the next thing you would want to do for investing in the program, because they do, the Pac-12, you go to Pullman, you go to, I don't know, Tucson's a little bit of a tough trip. Those sort of trips, if you could guarantee, charter for most of those Pac-12 trips, that would be helpful. So I know they do a few, they don't do a lot of them.
Let me ask you about the coaches, the dynamic between coaches and players at Oregon State. We recently, even as soon as last year, we saw, it was the coaches' sons who were on this team. And everybody expected this year would be a little bit of a step back. What happened? How are they here? Why are we in Indianapolis covering Oregon State, Daschel?
Well, I mean, let's be honest. When there was 3 sons on the team, there's not a lot of players they're going, okay, you're eating up 100 and some odd minutes a game. Where's my time? I mean, in the men's game, they're here. They don't think they can get to the league. That's what they think, and so they're looking for a place where they can showcase their talents, and so that made it a little bit hard. And now that the sons are pretty much gone, Ethan's the only one left. I mean, there's more opportunity for these guys, and Marlon Stewart is he's one of the assistant coaches. He's really clicked on the transfer market. All I hear is good things about what he's done out there. They brought in a lot of good transfers. They got good ones coming in next year. The only thing they need to do is keep upgrading the high school recruiting. That's the one piece that we need to see a little bit more improvement there. But I think that could be next. That could be coming.
Oregon State here in Indianapolis. If you're just tuning in, Nick Daschel, the beat reporter for the Oregonian who covers Oregon State, is with us. I'm John Canzano, columnist. It's a lot of fun to cover winning teams, and I think it's more fun to cover winning teams than losing teams. Way more fun. Everyone always thinks media thrives on negativity and controversy. I always looked at the Spurs contingent that covered the Spurs and the Duncan Popovich, era that, David Robinson. I was always envious that those guys were getting to write about fun, uplifting things. How much fun are you having covering this team in this run?
Well, it's nice to be able to talk to guys that want to talk, because things are going well. We've talked about this before. When you're a reporter, you either want the team to be, selfishly, you either want the team to be really bad because there's a lot of things to write about there, or really good because there's a lot of things to write. But when they're mediocre, it's just hard. It's hard to write. But yeah, I'm not looking for fun. I'm just looking for guys that want to get engaged and they want to talk. And these guys have always been pretty good anyway, but they're even more so now because they're winning and they have things to talk about.
The conference is going to have some transition. There's some rumblings coming out of Arizona about the job security today, about Sean Miller He may or may not survive the weekend as the coach at Arizona. USC and UCLA appear to have at least got their footing. Yeah. Oregon with Dana Altman, you can count them into the tournament in most years. Can we count on Oregon State to get back here in a year? How does the future look, and how does this weekend play into that, Daschel?
Well, I mean, this weekend can't hurt because, they're when we get to the offseason, they don't have any scholarships left, but guys are going to move. I mean, it doesn't matter how good you are, guys are going to transfer, and they'll probably lose a couple off this team. People are giving them a look. They've been giving them a look for a few weeks now, and they've got some guys that are coming in. That they've got a kid from Texas, Deshaun Davis. He's a two-way guard. He's one of the top JC guards in the country. The Amon Rond, he's already on campus. He's the transfer from Memphis. He's supposed to be every bit, maybe better of an athlete than Wari Thalatish. And if that's the case, I mean, that's a good athlete. I don't know how good of a basketball player he is, but he's a good athlete. It's just, I'd like to see. I mean, we're not going to see an immediate bump. I think it's going to take a couple of years to get the 4-year recruiting going. But I mean, all this success can't hurt. It can't hurt them.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this matchup, and I think it's interesting that I think in a normal arena, if it were 15 or 20,000 people in here watching Oregon State play Loyola Chicago, I think that Loyola Chicago Sister Jean thing gets the crowd behind them immediately. But I wonder if people watching at home are going to root for Oregon State. I'm talking about people who have no dog in this fight, because I kind of feel like Oregon State is the charming story left in this bracket. Like when you look at the seeding, of course, Oral Roberts, 15 seed, great story coming out of the early bracket. But I think Oregon State has a real shot here to get to the Elite Eight. I think if they play well and they play the basketball that they've played in the last 2-3 weeks, they're going to be in this game. And I think for Beavers fans who are watching this, I think it's a dream come true. I think they've been watching Wayne Tinkle. They've been waiting for Oregon State to kind of take that step forward. And here they are playing in Indianapolis. They're in the Sweet 16. If you're a Beaver fan, you do a victory lap today and really enjoy this, because I think it's going to be a great weekend of basketball. And Daschel, again, I'll give you some props, man. I do think you've been doing tremendous work. You're telling all the great stories for people who want to know what's going on with Oregon State basketball. Follow Nick Daschel on Twitter. Read him in the Oregonian and on Oregon Live. And can't wait to see what comes out of this. What are you working on that people – give us a teaser for tomorrow, Daschel. Game day, what can readers expect?
Well, I mean, I have something on Mike Parker. I'm going to write. He hasn't been to a road game all year, football or basketball, until this tournament. He was told, get on the plane, you're coming, and he didn't know that. So he's pretty excited. I'm trying to get hold of Jimmy Anderson. He has the tie to the last Sweet 16. And he's pretty good friends with Wayne Tinkle. They get along, since Wayne came to town, they struck up a friendship. Jimmy goes to a lot of the practices. Wayne and his wife go over to their house, have wine, eat dinner.
So if Jimmy Anderson is watching this Facebook Live, get in touch with Nick.
Call me, because I left a message on your landline. He doesn't have a cell phone. All he has is a landline, the message machine. Old school. But he's 83, so yeah. I thought maybe I could text him, but I guess he doesn't text. So
a couple of years ago at the Pac-12 tournament, I'm in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand, and I'm walking to the arena. And for people who've been there, the arena's inside the casino. They don't want you to leave the casino. I don't know if you knew that, but. So I go and I'm walking past like the line of fans who are waiting to get in, and Jimmy Anderson's standing in line. He was waiting to get into the arena. So it's just he's such a fan. And I think that is some of the charm of this run for Oregon State. There are so many good stories that are still left to be told. So I hope this team stays in this tournament as long as possible and allows us to continue to tell them. So
the only one that I know of that's not rooting for Oregon State, maybe some Oregon fans, are the sports books. I've heard that Oregon State is the one team they cannot afford to have win the Final Four, because it's a 7 or 8 figure bath if Oregon State wins. So they're not rooting for Oregon State.
Yeah, and I just think it's just been so much fun to watch this team. So we will do. Are we going to do another one of these? Maybe we'll do.
Well, if they win tomorrow, maybe we'll fire it up Monday before the game or something. Maybe we could do that.
All right.
Monday's game will be at Lucas Oil. It'll probably be mid to late afternoon because it's a Monday and there'll only be 2 games that day. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are signing off from Indianapolis. Make sure you share this video with your friends on your own Facebook page so that more Oregon State fans and more interested parties can see it. And we'll be back with another one after they beat Loyola Chicago.
All right. We'll see you.